something. You're going to learn some things that you probably don't know now. Millions of you out there around the world, YouTube, over 1 billion viewers probably by this time. You've been fed things that are absolutely not true. There's an unsanitized term for that, I'm not even going to say it. But now I want to give you another sanitized term, and it has to do with our topic today, and that is the universe, life, things that came about. And the scientific term used by exobiologists, astrophysicists, physicists, typically to stay very secular and to stay very away from the one word they don't want to deal with, they're going to call the origins of the universe something that has to do with an extra-dimensional intelligence. Now again, the sanitized term, what is that? It's the sanitized term for God. They don't want to use that word. All right. This is what we're going to talk about today. And is there a reason to be using that sanitized word directly? And that's what I want you to look at. I want you to look at evidence, not just my opinion. My opinion is biased because I come with a certain worldview. I look through worldview glasses tinted a certain color. You look through worldview glasses tinted maybe a different color. All right? Let's see if we can harmonize that by observing evidence today. And we're going to look at the universe, and you're going to see some things that you don't know right now. So stay with us. Okay, so just take this thought, please, and hold on to it over the next half hour, 45 minutes or so. Information has only one source always, and what's that? It's mind, of course. Okay, so look again into the universe. You've often heard that being described as the cosmos, which by definition would be this. Look it up on Google. The word implies viewing the universe as a complete, complex, and orderly system or entity. Now, that's not a bad definition. It's pretty much in keeping with our presentation here. Now, I don't know if the guy that wrote that was any kind of a person of faith, but he perhaps inadvertently mentioned some things that really sound like design to me. Complete, complex, and orderly system. Doesn't that sound like something designed? Well, that's the Google definition of cosmos. Well, we'll go with that. And I'd like you to take just a moment now and think with me about this. You and I know that sometimes people just aren't persuaded, even when they're given solid, locked down evidence, right? That could be sometimes even you and I. Well, certainly it doesn't mean that the evidence is faulty, not at all. In fact, it might be the absolute, pure truth. But tightly held values, strong emotions, sometimes maybe past circumstances, may cause someone, even a brilliant scientist, to shape a worldview in such a way that avoids, suppresses, or even rejects what is in reality pure, unvarnished truth. But consider this. Here's a quote from a secular astrophysicist who seemingly was forced to acknowledge that there must be an extradimensional intelligence of some kind responsible for the sudden and outward expansion of this cosmos, commonly referred to, of course, as the Big Bang. And he wrote this, quote, "We live in a universe that came into existence through an exquisitely orchestrated, hold on to that, burst of energy, matter, and space-time at a specific moment in the past." Hubble Space Telescope images of distant galaxies provide really visual evidence that we live in a universe that arose from and continues to expand from a singular creation event. Now, I highlighted the words exquisitely orchestrated and creation in his statement. Well, why? Well, if something is orchestrated, we typically are going to be looking for an orchestra leader, orchestra director, right? If something is created, well, by logical definition, it would have to have a creator. Well, I'm going to urge you now to keep an open mind and weigh the evidence up ahead very carefully. All right, most of us have heard of the now deceased, world-renowned mathematician, astrophysicist, and ultimately metaphysicist, Dr. Stephen Hawking. Now, Hawking was so tragically crippled, as you probably know, and paralyzed by ALS. But he was quoted once as saying this, "Cosmology is a religion for the intelligent atheist." Wow. Now, I don't know if Dr. Hawking said just a bit more than he intended to there, but notice he seems to admit that atheism is not a complete lack of religion. I think that's what many of us would say. Well, we thought atheism meant you don't want to be involved with a religion at all. But rather he's saying it's held too tightly as if it were a type of atheist religion. Sometimes that's called scientism by scientists in the intelligent design movement. It's a form of religion, scientism. Now, a well-known and respected Oxford mathematician and science commentator, Dr. John Lennox, who's written many books on science and faith, with Dr. Lennox talking to in a panel discussion about the illogical positions currently being held to by many otherwise brilliant scientists and philosophers, science commentators. The clip begins with Dr. Lennox referencing Stephen Hawking and his book, The Grand Design. Take a look.
Stephen Hawking was just ahead of me at Cambridge. I could remember him quite well, though I didn't know him. And I was rather amused that when the Times interviewed him and asked him about religion, he said religion is a fairy story for people afraid of the dark. And I was asked to comment, so I said atheism is a fairy story for people afraid of the light. It's very kind of you to clap, but that proves nothing. One of the things you learn in the world that I work, and it's very important, is that a statement by a scientist is not necessarily a statement of science. Now, what amazes me about Hawking, who's a genius, obviously, is the heart of his book with Leonard Mlodinow, The Grand Design. The key statement is this: because there is a law of gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. What? Because there is a law of gravity, because there is something, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. That's a flat contradiction. Secondly, because there is a law of gravity, he doesn't even say that gravity exists, but what would a law of gravity mean if there's no gravity? Worse still, the universe can and will create itself. If I say to you, X creates Y, roughly speaking, if you've got X, you get Y. If I say X creates X, well, if you've got X, you'll get X. And what does that mean? It means that nonsense remains nonsense even if scientists are writing it. So I was staggered that this is the key argument of his book. I would suggest that nobody with an undergraduate education in philosophy read that book before he published it. Because what he's reduced the whole thing to, and it's ironic, it's God or nothing now. Either God creates the universe or nothing does. And he gets into complications in the definition of nothing. But I was very fortunate in having a debate with Alan Guth, the father of modern cosmology, at the MIT Harvard Faculty Club. And I said to him in this very friendly debate, I said, Alan, people are very confused about nothing out there. So I said, look, you can help us. When you, as an astrophysicist, talk about nothing, you do not mean nothing in the philosophical sense of absence of anything. He said, no, we don't. I said, thank you very much.
That's exactly right.
So, the point is that these people are claiming to get a universe from nothing, but they're failing to do it. And the most amusing of all, I must tell you this, how would you like this if it was submitted to you? Lawrence Krauss, astrophysicist, because something is physical, nothing must be physical, especially if you define it as the absence of something. I mean, that is utter absurdity, and it's on about page 4 of his book. Now, the point is, and Bill is the world expert on this, so I'll stop now, that the standard model of the universe leads you with a start from nothing. And they're having a great problem to get a universe from nothing, so they redefine nothing. As a Christian, I don't believe the universe came from nothing. I believe it came from God, but God is not physical.
Dr. Lennox makes some pretty strong points of logic here, doesn't he? All right, I want to dig a little bit deeper now. Watch as a group of PhDs with an impressive variety of scientific credentials give quick responses to their perspectives on intelligent design in the universe and of all life.
As a scientist,
microbiologist,
Biochemist,
as a geologist,
neuroscientist,
physician,
biologist, and an engineer.
I think there is overwhelming evidence for intelligent design in nature.
I see intelligent design in the history of life,
in the genetic code of life,
in the molecular machines inside our cells,
in the complexity of life,
in the information embedded in living things,
in the operation of the human brain,
in the features of the human body,
in the chicken and egg causal circularity of life.
As a mathematician, I see great evidence of purpose in the universe.
As a molecular biologist, I see evidence for design everywhere I look, pretty much. Nature is incomprehensible without inference to purpose and to intelligent design.
Of the universe as a whole, and our planet in particular, were fine-tuned for our benefit and for our survival.
In my view, the fossil evidence clearly points towards intelligent design.
I see life as designed because when I look at life at the molecular level, I see exquisite engineering. All cells contain DNA, which include lots of information, and information is only the product of the mind.
Darwin thought living cells were just blobs of jelly, but when I look in a living cell, I see evidence of batteries, machines, three-dimensional architectures, enormous amounts of encoded information.
There's power generators, there's manufacturing plants.
Life contains many features that we know from experience only arise from the activity of intelligent agents.
The genetic code is like a software program. It's like somebody would have had to be a coder, would have had to form this particular genetic code. When I see that order and design, I have a really hard time believing that random mutation and natural selection alone can cause the complexity and the diversity we see in life.
When you look at nature at large, what you see is incredible examples of innovation which surpass human technology. Examples include the flight capabilities of a hummingbird, sonar in bats, and greater innovation always implies greater intelligence from a designer.
If you read the message from the molecules, it's really clear. They say clearly, intelligent design, intelligent design, intelligent design is the source of life.
Well, as you certainly know by now, we believe that the evidence strongly points to a creator of this vast universe, including, of course, all life on planet Earth, and that this creator exists eternally outside of this space-time dimension and is the uncreated cause of everything in this dimension. Now, interestingly, Christianity and the Bible's description of such a being match up perfectly with much of the new science over the last half century or so concerning discoveries of the staggering amount of fine-tuning of this universe, balanced on a razor edge, some scientists have said, in the ID movement. And so in that light, Dr. Steven Meyer is probably the most widely known, respected, and among the most brilliant spokesmen, certainly, and researchers in the field of intelligent design. Now, Meyer has written 3 monumental books, all bestsellers over recent years, on the newest science of intelligent design, and you'll see them up on the screen now. Signature in the Cell, Darwin's Doubt, and then his latest capstone volume entitled Return of the God Hypothesis. So watch and listen now to Dr. Meyer in this great compacted summary, I think, of the fast-growing case for design of the cosmos.
Modern physics has revealed evidence of design in the very fabric of the universe. Physicists have discovered that the fundamental physical parameters of our universe have been finely tuned against all odds to make our universe capable of hosting life. Even the slightest alterations in the values of key factors, such as the strength of gravity or electromagnetism, or the masses of elementary particles, would render life impossible. We live in a kind of Goldilocks universe, where the fundamental forces of physics have just the right balance, and the properties of matter have just the right characteristics and configurations to make life possible. To illustrate this idea, the late Cambridge physicist Sir John Polkinghorne imagined a universe-creating machine with numerous dials, each representing some critical parameter. The various dials each have an almost infinite range of settings, yet all are set just right. Not surprisingly, Polkinghorne and many physicists have concluded that the improbable cosmic fine-tuning of our actual universe points to a cosmic fine-tuner. As legendary Cambridge astrophysicist Sir Fred Hoyle argued, a common-sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super-intellect has monkeyed with physics to make life possible. Could this super-intellect have been an alien? Not a chance. Cosmic fine-tuning has been present from the beginning of the universe, and thus cannot be explained by any agent that arises after the beginning. Instead, fine-tuning is better explained by an intelligent agent outside the universe who could design its structure as a whole. To avoid this conclusion, some physicists have postulated another speculative hypothesis: the existence of a vast number of other parallel universes. This so-called multiverse idea portrays our universe as the outcome of a cosmic lottery, in which some universe-generating mechanism spits out billions and billions of universes. So many that our universe, with its improbable combination of life-conducive factors, would eventually have to arise. Yet advocates of the multiverse overlook an obvious problem. All such proposals, whether based on something called inflationary cosmology or string theory, postulate universe-generating mechanisms that themselves require prior, unexplained fine-tuning, thus taking us back to the need for an ultimate or transcendent fine-tuner or designing intelligence. Many of us call this intelligence God.
If you have to tap out and zoom off to do something else, do so. Come back to it. All right, here we go. I mentioned the sanitized alternative word to God, which is the extra-dimensional intelligence. Now, this intelligence, many scientists are beginning to see, due to the data that's coming in, they're having to be almost dragged kicking and screaming, reluctantly to admit that something is responsible for the mysterious fine-tuning. Now, that's not my description, that's a scientific description. You'll see that all over on the internet and different things. If you look into this a little more deeply, reading books, fine-tuning that's being observed in the data gathering from a number of scientific disciplines. But over a century or so at least, this has been occurring, but even just almost an avalanche of new data coming in over the last, say, 20 years. Modern science has just gone by an inviolable commandment in the past, and that is, thou shalt not pass from science theories to something in the area of another dimensional being, unquote. We people of faith, okay, and there I am, I'm talking about my bias now. People of faith simply refer to that being, again, as God. All right, now, here's the next step. You know, for centuries, scientists and philosophers have wondered about the origins of things, and specifically the origins of the universe when they would look up in the night sky, and have just wondered about what they're seeing up there. Did all this have a beginning? Or was it eternal? Was it always there? But in our generation, scientific discoveries by astronomers, astrophysicists, and exobiologists open up a new world of understanding of a universe that's rich in mystery and majesty. An analysis from the incredible details streaming in from deep space, you know, I'm talking about the Hubble, the Space Telescope, COBE now, the new Webb Space Telescope, and other spacecraft, just revealing stunning photos, information coming in via different channels of the spectrum, like the infrared spectrum, photos of galaxies, gas clouds, supernovas, black holes, and other deep space structures never before imagined in such detail or such description in the centuries past. Certainly, we're of a privileged generation here, folks. I'm an old guy, many of you are young people, but we're privileged because your ancestors and mine, just even your parents and grandparents, didn't have the opportunity to see the kinds of things and to learn the kinds of things that we're learning now from these space telescopes and from a deeper observation of the new scientific equipment and all that's being used. So we want to pay attention, if you will, if you want to put it in a poetic way, to the starry cosmos above us. And you're going to see a short video that I made on this, and I tried to punch it up with some dramatic music that to me brings out the emotion of what's there, but it's from the satellite pictures themselves. I want to begin strongly countering things that you probably learned from high school and college textbooks, if you've been to college, but certainly even in high school. Biology, astronomy, philosophy textbooks taught in classes by teachers and by professors. And it's still going on constantly, so you have to fight that mental contamination sometimes that leads away from the facts and instead go toward the facts. And there's a lot of information, and I'm going to have some of that on my on this video right now, and then on the screen below for you to check out if you choose to do so. All right, so that's been the standard of teaching and theory down the years. It's certainly the years that you and I have been alive. That's basically Darwinian, the Darwinian theory of evolution. That's what this is all based upon. And the theory being, of course, that everything, in other words, the universe, all life on planet Earth, everything came about by natural processes, undirected natural processes, unguided, unplanned natural processes. And that these processes, mainstream science and Bill Nye the Science Guy say, randomly emerged over eons by blind chance alone. Now, think just even intuitively in your own heart, does that really make sense when you look at the beauty and the complexity of what you see around you, not only in the universe, but just in your own backyard, up in the trees, in the skies, beautiful birds that might be on your bird feeder? Does it really make sense? But we can't base our judgment on that, because that, again, that's an emotional response. So let's look a little deeper. You know, and of course now, this evolutionary mantra is still being recited continually today. And by the way, a lot of scientists, secular scientists, not really ready to fully embrace intelligent design and what the implications of that are beginning to drift away, some of them even push away strongly from the standard Darwinian mantra, as I say, that's been almost like a religion. It's called scientism, by the way. If you look up that term, scientism, you should see that. Scientism is virtually a scientific form of religion.
We have evidence of a transcendent cause and a definite beginning for the universe. But in physics, there's another discovery that's been made that gives us more information about that transcendent cause, if you will. It's the discovery of what's known as the fine-tuning. The fine-tuning of the laws and constants of physics, as well as the initial conditions of matter at that first micro millisecond after the origin of the universe. Let me explain. If we think about that, here's an illustration of what the physicists are talking about. Let's just take the expansion rate of the universe. Turns out if the universe were expanding even a little bit faster or a little bit slower, we would either have what's called, if it was a little slower, we'd have a gravitational recollapse where everything would fall back onto itself. If it was going a little bit faster, the matter in the universe would dissipate too quickly, and we would end up with what's called the heat death of the universe. And it further turns out that the expansion rate of the universe is exquisitely finely tuned to about 1 part in 10 to the 60th power. That's 1 part in a trillion, okay? Now, I grant you not much in comparison to the federal budget deficit, but pretty impressive nonetheless. If you're an engineer and you're familiar with the notion of tolerances, the fine-tuning of this one parameter that makes life possible is within an exquisite finely tuned tolerance, very small tolerance for error. It's got to be right on the bullseye, okay? Now, I may not have made this point clear. Why is the fine-tuning important? Well, because if things were even a little bit different, a little too fast, a little too slow, the universe would not be a suitable place for life. Life depends on these fine-tuning parameters. Think of it as the Goldilocks universe. Not too hot, not too cold. Not too fast, not too slow. Not too big, not too small. Forces not too strong, not too weak. Everything delicately balanced to make life possible. Okay? And there are about 36 of these fine-tuning parameters that have been discovered at the fundamental level in physics. Things like the strength of gravitational attraction, the gravitational force constant, as the physicists refer to it, the speed of light, the ratio of other fundamental forces.
All right. I hope that helps clarify in some of your minds a little bit about this interesting, in fact, fascinating study of intelligent design. Now, I want to say this before we go a little bit further. We're going to get into the big gorilla in the center of the room, and what is that? That's the alien issue. Is there really extraterrestrial life way out there somewhere? Maybe, maybe not. Well, you say, okay, what do you mean if maybe not? What are these UFOs? There's a lot of really valid UFO encounters. A lot of them are phonies and whatnot, but when they're sifted through, and Dr. Hugh Ross, who we're going to see in a few minutes, is one of those who's really sifted through a lot of these. About 1% of them are unexplained, truly unexplained. Watch Dr. Ross here.
What's happening today is not just the United States, but several governments around the world have said they're going to release their classified documents on UFOs. But they've already released quite a lot. And I'm anticipating that the new releases are simply going to affirm what's already been released in the past. Namely, that there's millions of UFO sightings being reported, and most of them can be naturally explained, or military events, or they could be a hoax, but there's a 1% residual, and this is what's got the public fascinated. But what I've seen in my own experience of processing UFO reports is that where you got multiple observers in different sites, where you can actually triangulate the path of the UFO going through the atmosphere, there are times when they're recorded at moving at 18,000 miles per hour. But as these observers see them going through our atmosphere, they see no heat friction and no sonic boom.
Right.
And there's 2,000 instances where these things have been observed going through the atmosphere and crashing into the earth. And you go to the crash site, the ground is depressed. There's a shallow crater. If there's snow, the snow is melted. Vegetation is damaged. But when you investigate the site, there's no debris, there's no artifacts. If this was an actual physical craft, there would be debris that you could actually pick up. In this case, there's nothing. But you do see that something has happened.
Right.
There's something depressed the ground, something melted the snow and damaged the vegetation.
Could it be a meteorite?
Well, if it's a meteorite, you're going to find bits and pieces of a meteor.
Okay.
And when a meteorite goes through the atmosphere, you see a bright glow. There's heat friction. And if the object is moving faster than the speed of sound, you're going to get a sonic boom. The fact that there's no sonic boom, no heat friction, and at the site there's nothing to recover, tells us we're dealing with something that definitely is real, but it's not physical. These things violate the laws of physics. And what's being revealed in the US reports are naval pilots recording these UFOs moving at thousands of miles per hour and making sharp right angle turns. A physical object can't do that. If you make that sharp right angle turn, it's going to do damage to the craft, and any being on board would be destroyed if they're physical.
Oh.
So again, we're dealing with non-physical reality.
So you as an astrophysicist, you mentioned that you went to Caltech. You don't believe that in the entire universe that there couldn't possibly be another planet with other humans or other beings on them?
Well, I think it's possible that God may have created life on another planet. I can tell you as an astronomer, we've yet to see even a star that could possibly support a planet orbiting it in which advanced life is possible, other than our own star, the sun. Everywhere we look in the universe, so far, all we see are conditions that are highly hostile to advanced life.